Well, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to this time of worship as we celebrate this day, Earth Day. And so wherever you are joining us from, whether from Newfoundland or Edmonton, from North Vancouver or Kitsilano, wherever you are this day, you are welcome to this time of worship. We gather in this place on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And each and every year in this place, we celebrate Earth Day as an expression of our covenant relationship, not just to one another, but to all of creation. And that is deep in our faith tradition. And beautifully, it lands each and every year in the season of Easter, a time of renewal and new life. And so this is not a political service. This is a faith service. This is an hour to dive deep into questions of what does it mean to be connected to all of creation, not just humanity. And so we light the candle as we do each week. And as I light this, an invitation, we miss seeing the children here on Sunday mornings. And if you would like to light the candle so I don't have to each week, we'd really like to hear from you. And maybe we can do a little video of children lighting the candle from home and sending that in to us. And so this light is a reminder that we live in the light. The poet Rilke once said, "I trust in the night." And so whether you find yourself basking in light or in a time more fearful, trust that God is present and working amongst us. Let's worship.
Create So I've been reading Richard Rohr's book lately, The Universal Christ. This is it here. This is kind of fun. I feel like I'm on TV. It is excellent and highly recommended. Rohr says a lot of meaty things in it, but there's one statement appropriate for Earth Day Sunday. God is not only in all things, like you and me and Emma, all of creation, but all things are in God. Now, this might sound like pantheism, which is seeing creation in God, but rather this is panentheism, which is the belief that God is within all things, but also transcends them. As Jesus put it, when you love people, you are loving God. Similarly, when you actively, intentionally love and care for the earth and her well-being, you are loving God. Again, we're not worshiping creation. We are worshiping the God found in all of creation, all created things, and who also transcends it. So I say all this to say, when we sing about rivers and oceans and the elements, these aren't merely metaphors for the Spirit, but natural elements where Spirit is indeed found. So this morning, may we be opened up to deep gratitude for God's creation as we worship. For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. God of all, to you we raise this hymn of grateful praise, this grateful praise for the earth, our grateful praise.
For the beauty of each hour, for the day and of the night, hill and dale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars above.
God of all, to you we raise this hymn of grateful praise, this grateful praise for the earth, our grateful praise. For each perfect gift sublime, to our race so freely given, graces human and divine, flowers of earth and buds of heaven. God of all, to you we raise this hymn of grateful praise, this grateful praise for the earth, our grateful, this grateful praise, this grateful praise for the earth, our grateful praise, this grateful praise for the earth, our grateful River, rush her down to the ocean blue. River, from a mountain high. River, as you do what rivers do. River, draw the Spirit nigh.
Spirit, coming down to the riverside. Spirit, water, strength and life you give. Water, as I travel with each eye. Water, help my body live. River, flow down where you ran before. River, source of clearer view. River, as I walk your rocky shore. River, see my journey. Oh, see my journey through. Yeah. River, see my journey. Yeah, see my journey through. River, see my journey through.
Well, I'm able to see from the YouTube chat that that is one of the favorites out there. So thank you all for River, and we miss feeling your energy in this place. Glad to hear that we can see all three J's of the band when we do the wide shots. So we're glad that you're all visible, and they're like 8 feet apart, just so you all know. This is at the time where we share what's happening in our community, our announcements and our offerings. And just to remind folks, if you are wanting to connect in more ways with us, the website is the place to go. Your very best places to look on there are the Get Connected banner, but there's also something that drops down called News, and you'll find our latest newsletters and outreach opportunities there. So do check the website regularly. One of the things you may have noticed if you've been following us this week is a new series called Soul Food. We're placing those on Facebook, but hope to also get those on the website before long. It is offerings from you, from members of the community. The name might be a little misleading. This week, Chef Bartley showed us how to cook salmon and salad dinner that, frankly, when it's my turn to cook dinner at home, the children joke that it's always takeout night. However, with Rob's recipes, I think I might actually be able to pull this one off. So take a look at that, and look in the coming weeks for more soul food, yoga, meditation. We'll be offering all sorts of gifts from you to the community. We offered and collected this week items for First United Church for the housing projects, the buildings that they run through the First United Housing Society, and that was a great success. Many people dropped food off, and I know that others made donations directly to First United. Thank you. It's important to help others in this time, and so that will continue for a number of weeks. And finally, an invitation for you to give at this moment, and a reminder, actually just a word of appreciation. As people are donating through Canada Helps, that's where the Donate Now button leads you, so many of you are offering comments along with your offering. Thank you. It is so good to hear those words of appreciation and to know that what we're doing is making a difference for you. Donations of any size help us to carry on what we're doing and to keep touching lives on your faith journey in this time of isolation. And finally, join us at the end of the service for virtual coffee hour. The information is there on the YouTube channel and also on our website. We look forward to seeing you at that time. Let's play some music as you press Donate Now.
We got the whole world in our hands. 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 Oh, we got the earth. We got the earth and the water in our hands. We got the mountains and the valleys in our hands. We got the ocean and the rivers in our hands. We got the whole world in
have something a little different on offer for you today on this Earth Sunday. Instead of the usual sermon, I hosted a conversation with the Reverend Christine Boyle earlier this week. We taped it by Zoom from our homes. And as I was thinking, how do we acknowledge Earth Day? It seemed to me like a comfort to engage in conversation with someone who's known to many of us in this community. Chris was our Minister of Community Life for a couple of years before becoming a city councillor here in Vancouver, and her entire life has been dedicated to issues of justice, particularly in recent years, climate justice. And so leading into that conversation, we'll press play in just a moment, but I have a scripture reading to share to shape this time. This is from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 42, and some context for you. When we hear the prophets, we remember that they had this channel to God. Their task was to speak truth to the people. This particular passage is from the midway point, what's called Isaiah 2, in one of the very long prophetic books. But what's helpful to know is this was addressed to a people living in exile, a people who didn't have the familiar comforts, rituals, place that they usually lived. And so it seemed to me in this time to hear these words that sound hopeful, that sound empowering, and to remember that they were spoken first to a people who were suffering and feeling like the ground was shaking underneath them. And so if you're looking along in your scriptures, it's Isaiah 42, and it's just a few verses, 5 to 9. Thus says God the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people upon it and spirit to those who walk on it. I am the Lord. I've called you to righteousness. I've taken you by the hand and kept you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison, those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord. That is my name. My glory I give to no other, nor my praises to idols. See, the former things have come to pass, and new things I now declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. This is the witness of God's people. Thanks be to God. Now take a look on your screen as we zoom in to see this conversation between Christine Boyle and I earlier this week.
I'm really thrilled to be able to welcome to our time of worship today Counselor Chris Boyle. She's known to us as Chris, Reverend Boyle, lots of identities. Chris has spent her whole life, thanks to the church, she tells us, committed to works of justice, particularly climate justice, and as a city councillor, she's been very focused on affordable housing. And it occurred to me it would be great to have a conversation with her on this Earth Sunday in a year that is unlike any Earth Day we have ever celebrated. And so I think I'll try to start a little bit easy, Chris, and just ask you how your life has changed during this pandemic. And feel free to be personal and share some stories with us.
Great. So the most obvious change is that I do work like this from any free room in our house that I can claim amongst everyone who's at home all day. So I'm in my bedroom right now, but I mostly work from my office, which is shockingly cold. And so I kind of curl up with a hot water bottle and work off of a piece of plywood. And that feels like the most doable and easy change. The larger family piece is similar for a lot of people. We have 2 kids at home, and I will tell you that my 5-year-old is delighted to be spending more time with his parents, and my 16-year-old is a lot less delighted about the current family situation. So we're trying to support them, and everyone's trying to get work done. And so that's the kind of smallest unit of it.
I found I can totally relate to that experience. There's no 5-year-olds in my house, so it makes for a bit more sanity, but there's something that brings all of the, the masks we put on for the world, they just get torn off at this time. Maybe it's a good thing for us.
Yeah. And there's, definitely, we like, I hear most of Vancouver are making sourdough bread a lot. And the kids are having more screen time than usual. And like the reality, of course, is all of that is hard, and there's a bit more yelling than any of us feel great about on some days. And, it's manageable, and we're managing just fine. And the other piece that sort of not that's totally different, but that shifted for me is just the intensity of the crises and challenges that I hear about from people in my work life, which is all of my life right now, really. I think one of the things about this crisis is it's just exacerbated existing inequalities. So the folks who are being hit the hardest by it are exactly who we would have predicted had we expected this.
So in a sense, you've always been committed to working to change systems to help make people's lives better and balance out that inequality. But yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, that this is no more theoretical level, at least at this moment. It's much more that you're dealing with what are the real challenges on the ground. Is that a bit of a shift? Or?
Yeah, and there's some ways in which I think people's understanding of inequality has shifted, and it in really meaningful ways for the moment. So, I think about the 7 p.m. cheers that we're hearing all over the place that we've been participating in our neighborhood that are really a meaningful, I think, show of solidarity, and also, particularly for the lowest wage frontline workers in our systems, for janitors and cleaning staff, for folks working in long-term care homes who haven't been able to have one full-time job, even have been spread out over facilities because it's a privatized system, and those companies don't want to give them a full-time job to have to give them benefits. So they're making very little, and they're spread out. All of these people, grocery store clerks, are the other example we hear about. Like, these are essential workers, and I think a lot more people are realizing that right now. And so that there's a shift, I think, in how we're talking about that we're all in this together that is really meaningful. And the next step will be, as you say, shifting the system so that that's reflected in how people work and live and are treated.
Yeah. I'm curious, people love to quickly try, it's part of our human nature to try to figure out, make sense of this. What are we going to look like down the road? And I'm intrigued by the number of stories. If we take this, let's broaden this to the global scale, and the way people are talking about, well, there's so many silver linings, not things we would ask for, but silver linings. And one in particular that just makes me scratch my head is this question of the climate. Isn't this an unexpected great consequence that we're giving the earth a break? And I'm guessing, although you're dealing with a lot of on the ground stuff, you probably have some thoughts on that one.
Absolutely. So, I too see people sharing on Facebook these stories about like the swans returning to the canals in Venice, or the air quality in Beijing being the cleanest it's been in decades. It's an interesting glimpse, I think, at how we could be living and what it could look like. And the challenge, like all of these lessons, is going to be how we rebuild and whether we learn those lessons. So yeah, I do think there's some very temporary, we're going to see a big drop in greenhouse gas reductions for this period, and that's interesting. And there are shifts people are learning, that maybe more people can work from home, that maybe we don't need to travel so much. But it's also going to be a lot dependent on what our economic recovery looks like. Are we bailing out big oil and gas companies? Are we just all hopping on flights to see our loved ones immediately after this ends? So there's a big question of what our focus is in the rebuild. And I would say also, I've been fascinated to hear people describe that this pandemic is like climate change at high speed. So for decades, people have been saying, you know, the problem with getting people to care about climate change is that it's too slow and it's too distant. But a lot of what we're seeing related to this pandemic are similar things the climate activists and scientists have warned about. And it's like now, I was trying to describe to my kids when we had VCRs, we still have a VCR, but when we used VCRs, and instead of just clicking forward to where you wanted to go, you had to fast forward and you saw the whole thing sped up. And I think there's some ways in which our condensed experience of this pandemic is a lot like climate change on fast forward. And so, you know, my most optimistic self thinks we have a real chance to learn a lot of lessons from this and rebuild in a way that avoids this same kind of experience drawn out with all the same increased risks and inequitable impacts because of climate change. You know, it often is the elephant in the room. The question is, what are we going to learn from this?
Yeah. And of course, you know, I'm coming out of it from a different place than you, although I know you have had many conversations and thoughts around what's this mean for people of faith, right? And it's interesting to me that there can be this moment when we find ourselves in crisis that a tendency to sort of just cling on to what we know for sure, or truths that we used to be sure were true. So I see people in crisis, this one and many before, even personal things in your lives, where it's, okay, I just need a God to come in and choose this one time to fix it all. And I think the challenge for us is how can we continue to see ourselves as agents in that relationship of, all right, what's God up to in our world and what's my role in that? And do I actually need to show up in different ways in my life and in the world as we look at who are we on the other side of this? I don't know if you really don't have time for those questions right now.
I miss them. I was watching the Easter service last week, and particularly as I sat watching that, noticing how much I missed this community and the language and the sort of reminder that the reminder of something larger as I sit with a kabillion emails and the sort of weight of the real impacts. I am not ashamed to say I wept through the entire Easter service. And so that's a value for me and a thing I miss, and I don't think I'm the only one. And yeah, I think it is, there's a balance, there's a question of what's our role as we recover from this. And I think we shouldn't be shy. We're people of stories and people of moral clarity, or at least some clarity. Sometimes I don't think most of us would claim to absolute clarity, but a language and sense there that is needed in the lessons that we learn from this, and we shouldn't shy away from speaking up about those, because it really is critical that one of the big takeaways out of this whole experience is a reminder of our interdependence, and that's something we have known for centuries. That's in our tradition in so many ways, and so I think there's a chance for us to speak up and lead with that kind of language, and it matters more than ever, as much as ever.
Yeah, it does. You know, and of course, there's that tendency to all right, let's get on and figure things out. But I do want to ask you, because beyond 5-year-olds coming into the room when you're on Zoom calls and cats photobombing, you've got a lot of weight on your shoulders right now. And I think there's some value in empowering us to acknowledge that interconnectedness when we know the humanity of our neighbors. And so I'm really curious, what is keeping you up at night these days? What are the worries on your heart?
You know, the big worry for me is that even amid all of these nice sentiments that we're all in this together, and that we see and acknowledge the essential work that some of our lowest paid workers do, my big worry is that the recovery, economic recovery that we engage in will lose all of that, and that we will go back to a kind of business as usual or worse, or business as usual on steroids. It's been really clear to me in this time that it hasn't been billionaires or large corporations that have saved us most in our time of need. It's been our public health system. You know, it's been leadership from all of these incredible women health experts like Dr. Bonnie Henry. And it's been our neighbors and strangers and friends. It's been people willing to change everything about their life to reduce the risk for people they don't know and have never met. So I want so badly for that to be something that we remember, that sticks in our bones, but also shifts the way that our systems are. And I think that would direct us to rebuilding in a way that respects the earth and that respects one another a lot more, that we can rebuild in a way that reflects that we need one another. And I see already lobbying and pushing for that not to be the lesson that we learn, and for us to go back to a way of life that's unsustainable ecologically, and that is killing people all over the place, not just in a pandemic, but you know, in all of these broader inequalities and emergencies that we're facing all the time. So just that is what keeps me up at night, but I mean that really honestly. I spend my days and nights. These days, I spent I would say the first month of this pandemic really focused on the immediate impacts and how are we pushing to purchase hotels and move people into them who can't social isolate? How are we providing supports for domestic violence victims so that they aren't trapped in their homes with abusers? Like, that's where my focus was for the first month, and now I'm really losing sleep thinking about how everyone fares as we rebuild.
Well, and I mean, you've answered my last question, because you know, I asked what kept you up, but you've woven into that the hope for another vision, one that those of us in the Christian tradition claim to be and know to be from that tradition, and others. I mean, it is so beautiful to hear the various faith traditions lifting up. Yeah, this community thing, we know about this, but I hear in you that you're, which I would totally expect from you, you're not willing to let those sleepless nights bring you down into despair. Your fierce commitment to justice sounds like it's strong. So I commend you on that, and your ability to still tap into that in this time. Anything you want to say to us before we finish?
Well, I just, the other thing I want to say is that I know there are so many folks in the CMUC community who are also figuring out shifts in their lives in this way. And so, you know, because of the chaos of our current life, I think often about all of my friends and all the folks I don't know who are teachers and the particular struggles of that. I see the seniors in my own family wrestling with having to stay home and having their children tell them to stay home and making them feel old, and all of those dynamics and additional stresses. And so I do think one of the challenges for us all interpersonally as we figure out surviving the day-to-day pieces of this are that balance of kind of acknowledging how hard it is for us and having empathy for everyone else around us too. And so I just I think I just miss all of you folks, and so I am thinking of particular people and wishing I could give them a tight squeeze at the passing of the peace, and be able to say personally, like, this must be hard for you, and how can we help? And we're all missing the ability to do a better job of that for one another, and so I just want to end on, I wasn't expecting that to make me a little weepy, but yeah, I think that is always what carries us through, and so I hope that people are feeling that kind of support among the people around them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the connections in the community that will sustain us. Thank you, Chris, for sharing your insights, your struggles, your humanity, and your hopes. It's been a joy to work with you for a couple minutes one more time.
When I asked the singers, what ideas do you have for Earth Day songs? And they came back, Sabrielle and Heather, with this idea, Beautiful City. And I thought, oh, I know exactly the version I want to do of that, and I know exactly the person that I would like to have sing it. And so I was very happy to ask Joey Lagyo, also known as Joey Carlos, to come sing it. Joey sings with us at UGC, but he's been attending, well, he started attending Canadian Memorial before the plague hit, and so it's nice to have you here singing with us today, Joey. Thank you so much for coming to sing this song.
Out of the ruins and rubble, out of the smoke, out of a night of struggle, can we see a ray of hope? One pale thin ray reaching for the day. We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. We may not reach the ending, but we can start slowly but truly mending, brick by brick and heart by heart. Now, maybe now, we start learning how we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. When your trust is all but shattered, when your faith is all but killed, you can't give up, bitter and battered, or you can slowly start to build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but finally a city of men, a city of men.
This is the moment, if you were here in our presence, I'd ask you to hold the power of that beautiful offering that Joey just gifted us with. This is a time of prayer, and I invite you to ease into this time with whatever sounds and chaos is around you. Take up a posture of openness, and let's begin this time of prayer with listening, just sitting in the silence for a moment and listening to the Spirit in our midst. Let's pray together. We notice our breath, oh God. We notice the sounds around us. And we trust that we are one. We trust that we're not alone. We offer prayers this day of deep gratitude. Gratitude for your presence in our midst, for the signs of spring that will not be silenced. Gratitude for earth, rich soil that is coming to life after winter rest. Gratitude for your call to build beautiful things, to build communities of light and love. What a gift to be called. And we name our regret. We seek forgiveness for the ways we let one another down, for the ways that daily we don't live up to your call to be covenant people, covenant with one another, with all of creation, with humans that we will never meet. We are sorry. Turn our grief, turn our tears into laughter, into commitment for justice. Hear these prayers as we offer to the prayers for those we know and love, for those who grieve, for those who face diagnoses that we would not wish on anyone, for those who are struggling and afraid and alone, we pray. Hold these offerings, O God of love, as we seek to be your people who build communities of love, as we offer them in the words that Jesus taught us. Will you pray with me, saying together, Eternal Spirit, earth maker, pain bearer, life giver, source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God in whom is heaven. The hallowing of your name echoes through the universe. The way of your justice be followed by the peoples of the earth. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen.
This hymn is familiar to everyone. And the notes written here in More Voices 135 say that this is a call to live with respect in creation, celebrating the ancient tradition of the four elements called by earth and sky.
Called by earth and sky, promise of hope and life. This is our sacred living trust, treasure of life, sanctified. Called by earth and sky. Precious these waters, endless seas, deep ocean stream, waters of healing, rivers of rain, the wash of love again. Precious this gift, the air we breathe, wind born and free, scent of the Spirit blow through this place, our gathering and our race, called by earth and sky, promise of hope and life. This is our sacred living trust, treasure of life, sanctified. Called by earth and sky. Precious these mountains, ancient sands, vast, fragile land, seeds of our waking, rooted and strong, creation's faithful song. Precious the fire that lights our way, bright dawning day, fire of passion, sorrows undone, our faith and justice won. Called by earth and sky, promise of hope and life. This is our sacred living trust, treasure of life, sanctified. Called by earth and sky. Called by earth and sky. Called by earth and sky.
What a joy to be able to worship together in this way. We are so grateful that you've joined us today. The information for virtual coffee hour is there on the YouTube page. Please join us. And whatever this week holds for you, just a reminder that we are in this together. Seek out places of connection and community, and do your best to show up each day with love and generosity, and be patient and gentle with yourself and with others. We have a great calling, and we are not in this alone. What a gift to be community. We're going to sing one more song and really get you dancing before coffee hour begins. As you go into this week, go knowing that you are blessed and you are called by God. Go with the blessing of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Giver of life. Amen.